Lo-fi as the new luxury, rediscovering humanness in music. With his warbly vocals and emotive delivery, Cameron Winter is the indie music darling of the moment. His concert performances provide a rawness and vulnerability that is missing from the auto-tuned music stream that characterizes much of today's music. Reviews of his shows tell the story. Refreshingly unperformative. He knows how to perfectly walk the line of imperfection and technical ability. And tremulous at times, histrionic at others, but he always sounds like he's bearing his soul. Cameron's work has been compared to Bob Dylan, Leonard Cohen, and Nick Drake, and he has acknowledged these influences. I like the feeling of hearing people struggling against their own limits, like trying to break through. Keeping it real. The unpredictability of any live show experience is part of what makes it appealing. Differences from the recorded version, such as a variation in tempo or phrasing, an extended solo as well as the odd mistake, means you are witnessing a one-off event. We expect musicians to be technically proficient, but the emotional component of a performance is likely to contribute the most value to our experience. We can pick up these cues from listening to audio only, but the live concert provides a multi-sensory experience that includes a feedback loop of energy from the audience. Think Kurt Cobain, Nirvana Unplugged. Oral/oral music tradition and notation. Centuries ago, before music was written down, music was overwhelmingly an oral tradition. Songs and chants were memorized and passed on person to person, leading to inevitable variations in melody, ornamentation, phrasing, or lyrics across performances or regions. Early music notation was imprecise, more a reminder for singers who already knew the tune than a fixed blueprint. Performances remained fluid, leaving room for improvisation, and often reflecting the performer's mood, audience, or context. Oral transmission continued after music notation started to develop. For example, in the Middle Ages, much of the population was illiterate, so music was primarily oral. Also, African American work songs developed in the slavery era were part of a mostly oral culture. These had no fixed form and were only recorded later in the 19th century. Today, even with detailed notation, oral elements persist in music such as folk and jazz. In the jazz music tradition, notation is treated more flexibly, often as a descriptive framework rather than a rigid prescription. Live music will always include subtleties such as timbre, groove, and micro-variations that notation doesn't fully capture. Lo-fi in the recording studio. Recording music in a professional studio has often focused on eliminating imperfections to produce a polished result, in contrast to the homemade, recorded in a bedroom type of sound. But a lo-fi sound is no longer necessarily seen as undesirable, and many producers reject the achievement of an overly slick sound. Instead, character and warmth are intentionally restored into recordings with techniques such as adding tape hiss, ambient room noise, and unquantized drums. Electronic music duo brothers, Boards of Canada, use a variety of production techniques to achieve their ethereal sound, including tape machines, analog synths, and drum mixes that include live drumming. Contributing to the lo-fi sound is the way analog gear can force musicians into a different type of workflow. It encourages producers to mix by ear rather than with their eyes. Anyone who has ventured even slightly into electronic music production with programs such as Logic Pro knows the pitfalls. It's easy to get visually engrossed in the waveforms and meters, and hard to resist the temptation to continue tweaking endless parameters. By making the screen secondary to the work of creating sounds, small imperfections can add up to a more organic feeling result. Analog gear is also tactile. Physically turning knobs feels more intuitive and fun than the digital alternative. Lo-fi as wabi-sabi. Whether it is a deliberate stylistic choice or not, lo-fi music production emphasizes feel and atmosphere, often evoking a particular mood or memory, and it's more fundamental than simply an antidote to over-refined or AI-generated tracks and pitch correction. The craving for lo-fi taps into our nostalgia for a more analog life. It's akin to the Japanese aesthetic of wabi-sabi, which appreciates the beauty of imperfection and impermanence and focuses on simplicity and authenticity. A lo-fi approach can also help musicians who struggle with perfectionism. Those who accumulate a stack of unfinished projects because of agonizing over fine details and an obsession to reach particular standards. Rather than treating flaws as mistakes, embracing imperfection can add a natural depth to your tracks and help your music breathe.